I'd like to start just by thanking our fans again for the turnout Saturday night. Tremendous atmosphere. Our players certainly appreciate that, as do the coaches and myself. You know, tale of two halves, certainly. You look at the film, some really good things we did in that game, and then certainly some things that are not up to our standards, things that we have to improve on. So it was an honest assessment. We're going to lean into the things we've done well for 2 weeks and continue to make the corrections and improvements more quickly on the things that need addressed. But certainly some areas where we have to be better, where we have to get healthy, and then some areas that we can build on and grow from. There were certain positions that played better than last week, certain individuals that played better. There were certain units that played better. Thought we ran the ball a little better. Thought our pride coverage was what it needs to be. It's got to continue throughout the year. We put some drives together that were balanced in that first half, spread the ball around. We were better in the red zone, not where we need to be yet. We blocked better in the perimeter early, which helped us spread the ball around. The takeaways, critical in that first half. So having the, finishing the half with the ball and points, you'd like to have touchdowns, but that's back-to-back weeks where we get some points. We don't give them the opportunity to do something before the half. But, the second half, it was a compounded issue. We weren't able to drive the ball. We weren't able to get a first down. And, protection wasn't good enough. We didn't block well enough. And then defensively, we got a 1st and 20, they convert. We got a 2nd and 16, they convert. We got 2nd and 18, they get it to 3rd and 7 and convert. They got 3rd and 9, they convert. 3rd and 13, convert. It wasn't any one thing. When you look at the film, you say, okay, what's the problem? What were the issues? You write them down, you look at them, you talk to the players about it, you correct them. Is it something we're asking that they can't do? Is it unrealistic? Do we got to execute better? Do we got to teach it better? So you dive into all that to make those improvements. And I'm not taking anything away from their quarterback or their team. It's a pretty good football team that we lost to. But we got to be the team that we were most of the game against South Carolina, and then the team that we were in the first half against Vanderbilt. That's the team that we're leaning into. There's positives to build on, and there's improvements that we have to make, and we need to make them by this weekend. Take some questions.
I know coaches always talk about putting a loss behind you. Is that easier said than done sometimes with the players specifically that are maybe a little more emotional about things like this?
Yeah, for our team, we expect to win both these games, and they're confident and they believe that. So those guys are disappointed in the way we played the second half, disappointed that we didn't come out with a victory. I think, again, you've heard me say this, I like going out on Sundays. You make the corrections, you dive into the film, you do all those things that are, sometimes it's difficult. Guys not doing what they need to. Maybe it's a poor call by a coach. There's ownership, there's honesty, and that's where you grow from. And we got to grow a bunch from both of these losses, and to be the team that we can be. And there's, and I tell them, we don't get discouraged. There's too many good things. There's too many positives that we can build from to be the team that I believe we can be and that they believe they can be. So, got to practice better. Got to make sure we teach better, coach better, listen better to eliminate some of these things that got us in that second half. And we got to get healthy.
Brent, what did you sense in the team's mindset, their attitude after the game, and has that changed in the walkthrough practice Sunday and leading into early this week?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was just saying. I think going out on Sundays, it helps get it behind them. They own it. They see what went wrong. It's coached through. It's talked about. Questions are answered. And it gives you a pathway forward. And then you start working on the next group because there's not much time. It's 6 days. Certain things are going to carry over that you have to improve on regardless of who you're playing. And then certain things you got to get ready for that next opponent that's different.
We'll go David and then Eric. You were talking about defensively. It wasn't one thing. Did you feel like watching the film that a lot of these are things that you guys can correct and get better? That it wasn't like over the super complicated things?
Yeah, those are the things that I ask as a head coach. Were we asking them too much? Was it if this then that? Are we asking things of guys that aren't realistic? Are we asking things of guys that don't have the skill set to do it? Let's make sure that what we're asking to get done is executable and and fair to ask of these players and of the scheme. And really, when you went around the film, on my notepad, there's 11 different things that caused us trouble. It wasn't any one thing in the second half defensively. For me, Pavia is going to make his plays, but when you got opportunities where you got him second and extra long, you got him third and long. I mean, you got to get off the field on a couple of those occasions, and that can swing the half. You got to convert. You got to earn that first down and extend things. So again, it just compounded each other. But I love the way we kicked the ball. I love the way we protected, covered. There was a lot of good things. I thought the way Terrion and Hawkins ran the ball, and we did some things there. Kyron's runs, impactful in the game. So we got to build on it.
Coach, I know coming off of a loss, a lot of coaches talk about trying to build small wins throughout a week leading up to the game. Are you one of those coaches that kind of looks at that in terms of how practice and everything looks and the way you approach it and look for some small wins there?
Yeah, always. I think you guys know I'm always going to find the positive. I think the guys need to, the external noise is always, if you lose, it's negative. I don't want them listening to that, listen to what's fair, where the expectations weren't met, where we have to be better. You see it, we see it, as coaches and players. And but let's not lose sight of the team that we've been at times also that's a pretty good football team.
I know it's early in the week. Any update on Garrett or Cunningham, their status going forward?
No, we'll learn more today. Obviously those two guys are critical. I look out there in that second half, we got 3 redshirt freshmen, against a pretty experienced group. But, Johnny's tough, Mont's tough. If those guys can go, they'll go. Johnny's kind of, that left tackle spot. We moved Tomas over, put Aiden at right. We're going to look at a couple things, but we won't know exactly what we need to do until we know who we have.
Besides just getting healthy, are there things you can do to help that group along from a schematic standpoint?
Yeah.
Do you have to hold more guys in for protection? What needs to be done there?
Yeah, we're looking at all that, Andy, to be honest. Slide protection, max protection, chip, quick throws. If we go in there and we don't feel good about the matchup and protecting, we got to have a plan B if we're not able to do that. Really plan B, C, and D. These are the things we'll go to and lean on if we're not able to protect like we need to.
Was that something maybe you didn't see in the second half? I mean, it seemed like Vandy was very much bringing the house on everything when they saw it.
I think, I think it was probably known to them that we didn't have much depth. Brody wasn't dressed out. Muskrat hasn't played. And when Johnny went down and Montavious left the lineup early in the first quarter, if I'm a play caller, I'm going to turn it up and test the offensive line for sure, test the protection.
Still on the offensive line, you mentioned the second group just hasn't had the experience yet. Was it good to at least get Ricard and Lynch in there and get them some fire?
Absolutely. That's the positive. That's the silver lining. Those guys had to play against a pretty good group. If you remember last year, Xavier Chaplin played one snap against Old Dominion. All of a sudden, Johnny Garrett, as a redshirt freshman, has to play. It was a great experience for him. Getting those guys the opportunities, I'd rather have it come in different places and at our discretion. But, those guys are growing up fast.
We talked to Heath last week. Didn't get to see the field. Was that just because matchups or injuries, and do you expect him to have a role this week?
Yeah, ironically, he got dinged up the day that he spoke to you guys after practice. So we didn't know for sure if he'd be able to play or not. He got a little better as the week went, but not well enough to play. When I spoke to him before the game, he said, "Coach, I'm an emergency guy if you need me," but he wasn't 100%.
Coach, the offense had some success against South Carolina with those deep shots, 50-50 balls. Didn't see as many of those connecting against Vanderbilt. Was that just due to the pressure, or was there something else Vanderbilt was doing?
No, honestly, in the first half, it just wasn't the opportune time. We were mixing it up and running it and throwing it and spreading the ball around, staying on rhythm. It just, I looked for it too because I like our shots. And, it just wasn't, it would have been forced. In the second half, is there a way to kind of get a few? I think we threw one and it was a PI. Is there a way to get a couple more of those down the field and give those guys a chance? I think so.
Let's go David, Eric, and then we'll go to Zoom.
Jarikas, we haven't seen him a ton, but he caught a touchdown, and he also paved the way on Kyron's. What have you seen from him and just his growth?
Yeah, he's taken a step the last 2 weeks. Coach Davis has done a nice job with him. He's got a good skill set. He's a hard worker. It's finally kind of slowing down for him where, he looks more comfortable out there playing. And obviously we were very happy for him, excited for him, his first touchdown. But on top of that, he played his best game, played his most extensive snaps. Harry's been a little banged up, so there's been a little more onus on him. And I thought he did a nice job. Good step.
What do you make of this ODU offense and that quarterback?
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, you look what they challenged Indiana and hung around and stayed in the game. Really, both sides, defensively and offensively. The quarterback took 2 to the house, so he's proven that that he can do that. We had one of those against us last year. They spread you out. They make it hard to have depth to your defense with the way they align and formation you. And so when one gets out, if they've got the speed, they can take it the distance. But he's a competitor. He's really a quality runner. I think they're committed to running the ball. But he's, I know he threw a couple to the other team in week 1, but he was much better in week 2. They're challenging. And I think defensively, this is one of the stingiest defenses I've seen in the red zone. They were that way last year against us. They were that way against Indiana in a number of opportunities. They got a good plan down there, and they make it challenging. But that game with Indiana, there was a punt return for a touchdown, 90 yards or something. Outside of that, I mean, they were pretty stingy, and ODU was able to do enough with the ball to keep in the game.
Along those lines, I was going to ask just the matchup in the series with ODU as overall. I know it's been renegotiated before the season and such, but what have you come to appreciate about just the competition level that program has brought out of you guys and kind of, had you guys step up perhaps the week after and so?
Yeah, this is a good bunch, and obviously I know, Coach Ronnie, and ton of respect. I know how these guys are coached, the type of guys he's bringing in there, his staff. I mean, they're going to be competitive. You look at their schedule throughout last year, I mean, it was a close game after a close game, and they lost more than they won. But, there were moments in our game last year where, they were giving us trouble. Despite the way the score looked at the end, it was a better game than that. I think Indiana's a quality team, clearly, and they gave me everything they wanted in week 1 and then, rolled it up pretty good on Central in week 2. So, these guys, we're familiar with a lot of these guys. So, and it's been, I think it's 4-2 in the series. I mean, we hadn't won over there till last year, and, they'll come in here and give us a tough battle. I know that.
Let's go to Zoom for a couple. On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to ask questions for Coach Pry. We'll open it to questions and start with David, please.
Brent, along those lines, have you and Ricky talked since the announcement that the series would be pared back?
Now, we talked a little bit prior to the announcement, but Rick and I have we've said multiple times, it'd be nice if we weren't playing each other, where we could talk a lot more. And about our teams and our process and the way we do things. But you know, with the way we've played each other pretty consistently, it hadn't allowed us to do that.
And from what you can tell, what do they lose now that Henderson is no longer playing?
First of all, ton of respect for that kid. Love the way he played linebacker. From what I've learned from Rick, what this kid's about, you know, my heart goes out to him that he couldn't finish out his career the way he wanted. Really quality linebacker who'd overcome a lot. So, but you know, they've got guys. You know, he didn't play against us last year. The guy we'll see this year, 38, he played against us last year, and he's played a ton. And I would imagine that you know, he'll be the guy we'll see.
As you went through what you called your honest assessment of Saturday, at any point in the second half, did you have reason to question effort?
No, I didn't question effort. I did question if the guys were tired.
Oh,
I questioned, you know, if I overworked them last week. Performance staff doesn't feel like we did, but I didn't think we had the same pop. When I watched the film, probably more so than on the field, you know, I don't know, you know, the defense may have gotten a little tired with the 3 and outs offensively and the drives by Vanderbilt. But, you know, I think you look at that film, there's a difference in explosiveness in the first half versus the second half.
do you attribute that at all, Brent, to the short week?
I'm not going to say that. The sports science would say no,
Okay.
that we did the right things. I, you know, met with those folks every day last week, making sure we weren't overdoing it. And had a meeting yesterday, talked with Kelsey and Ferg this morning. They don't feel that way. So more than, you know, me saying that's really by what I see on that film, kind of what I felt a little bit. It was good to have an off day yesterday. We didn't have one last week, so it was good to have an off day.
Thank you.
Any final questions for Coach Pry on Zoom? Okay, Travis.
You mentioned 2 different halves for the team, drones included in that group. How do you assess Kyron through a couple games here where you're working behind kind of a patchwork offensive line?
Yeah, I think he looked more like himself in the first half. You know, he gains confidence when he runs the ball effectively, and he did that. Down there in the red zone, I think he had 3 straight carries. You know, he had a nice long one in the open field where he delivered a good blow to the defensive back, and you know, and made some good throws. I think the throw to Benji, you know, that's one we got to make down our sideline. But I think it's probably unfair to try and evaluate him in the second half. There just wasn't a lot of time. I don't think there was, you know, there was a play or 2 that I think he wished he'd have back, but maybe a couple decisions down in the red zone in that first half. But, you know, certainly he's got to continue to improve. But much like our team, there's moments in both these games where I'm very proud and pleased with what he's doing. We just got to get it more consistently and be, you know, he's got tremendous potential, and, you know, to get him, like I've said all offseason, to reach that potential is good for him and really good for us.